Okay, we're going to review the finder scope for astronomy. This has a combination of a red dot type of finder and a laser finder, so you can use it in the day and the nighttime. It has a 3D printed mount that is compatible with dovetail mounts. It has the Allen wrenches for making adjustments stored in the mount itself, so you don't lose them. They're magnetically contained. And here's a smaller one for the laser. And that's how they store. Let's take off the cover and take a look. So most finder scopes made for rifles are too bright to use at the daytime. So what I've done to adjust it is I've changed some of the resistors. So let's go ahead and show some of the bright levels. The brightest level can be used during the daytime like a normal normal rifle does. You can see the image down there of the finder. Let me turn off the light so you can see this better. So this is normal daytime usage. You can see it's quite bright. Going down to the next level 4 would be more dusk usage. If I can find it. There it is. Level 3 would be dark. There. Level 2 could be very dark and dim, and quite dim. And the lowest level is very dim indeed. Barely seeable during the daytime. Let's bump it up a little bit. There's two colors, red and green. So let's go to the green. 3. Okay, here we can see it. Let's go ahead and show you there's different reticles that you can illuminate. That's the circle with the dot. That's just the dot only. Here's a crosshair. Here's a crosshair with the circle. Let's see if I can put it in there. Nope, that's not going to focus. Okay, let's go over some of the equipment we are using to make these modifications. First, I have a workstation here. Obviously, that's not necessary. The workstation has various clamps that you can use. This is handy for clamping the circuit board. This I use for my camera. And this is for lighting and magnification. Important to be able to magnify what you're doing. Obviously, we've got the original gun sight finder that we're going to need. I've got a battery-powered soldering stick here. I've got these box of resistors, or notebook of resistors. Tons of resistors in here, 8,000 of them. I think 20 of each kind. So we need that. We need these snap pliers. Basically, this is to help us get into the underneath the battery so we can get to the circuit. Yeah, I usually just use this without the pliers itself. This is basically to get it started, turning the retention ring started. You can also, in replace of this, you can use something like a very small screwdriver, something like that. I'll show you later on, but they're a little harder to work with. We've got lead-free solder paste. We got flux. We have cleaner for cleaning the circuit after we're done, and not necessary. We've got something for cleaning out the tips of the soldering gun, and little magnets that we'll be putting in the finder base, which is that here. Won't actually go through that process because it's pretty straightforward. Then we have this hot air gun used for taking these resistors off the circuit board. You don't have to have a hot air gun to do that. You can just use a soldering iron. It can be difficult though because you got two sides to take off. So either have two soldering irons to do it, or else use this guy. And we got a meter just to check our connections. We've got some needle tweezers. We already showed you that screwdriver. A little Sharpie here for getting stuff out of the resistor kit, and then a little pin tool that could be used also to replace the screwdriver if you want to use that. And that about covers the equipment we're going to be using. Okay, we're ready to go ahead and get inside this finder. What we're trying to do is access the circuit board so we can take that out and solder on the new resistors that we want. So the tools for to getting in are pretty simple. All you need is some pinch pliers, and actually you can use some real small flathead screwdrivers too, but pinch pliers will give you leverage that these can be put, the retention rings can be put on pretty tight at the factory, so that's what these are handy for. They give you better leverage. And then a pin tool or a really small screwdriver that you can use also, which you'll see shortly. So let's go ahead and start getting in here. We're going to go ahead and take the cover off. Here's where the battery's at, and this is where we need to get into. So we'll go ahead and take the top of the battery off container. And there's the battery. We're going to go ahead and flip that out. Let's put that aside. And this is a circuit board we're trying to get into. So if you take a look here, you can see the retention ring here, and there's two notches, one here and one over here, that are used to screw the retention ring down. Again, if you use these pinch pliers, it makes it easier. If you get it in each of the notches here, you should be able to go ahead and start twisting it out. Once you get it started, you can do it without the pinch pliers. There. You can just use this guy here. Okay. And we'll just keep on screwing it out here. Okay, we're ready to take out the retention ring now. It's loose. Let's look at how the retention ring is oriented. So you can see it has a lip here. We're going to make sure that lip is facing up when we put it back. Okay, and here's our circuit board. We should be able to just flip it over. There's also another ring here that's on it. When you flip it over, it'll pull it out. Okay, and there we go. What I should have pointed out before we take that out, this has notches in it also, you can see. Before we take it out, you want to see how it's oriented. And it should be oriented. What I do is orient it so the R is here, and when the circuit board's in here, it's oriented like this. See that little line there? That line is pointing towards the R. So when we put it back, we need to make sure we do that. So here's the circuit board and the various resistors that we need to replace. And now we're ready to go ahead and do that. Okay, now that we've got this clamped in here, let's go ahead and review what the resistors are that's on the original circuit board. So this first one here, don't know if you can read those numbers, it says 361, which means it's the first two numbers are the resistance, and then the last one is number zeros afterwards. So that means it's 360 ohms. So this is position 1, the brightest position of the finder. The next position is 590. So then we move on to the next one, and that's 1,600 ohms. The next one over is 2,400 ohms, and the final one is 3,900 ohms. So this is a range of about 10 times of resistance, from the very least resistance to the most. So you can see 10 times resistance isn't a whole lot of range there. What we're going to do is replace it with a 430 in position 1, which is pretty close to what the original one was, so still visible in the daytime. The next one, though, is jumping up to 10,000, which is a little over 20 times as less resistance or more resistance. So this is going to be quite a bit dimmer. This is something you can see in the dusk, but maybe not barely visible during the day, broad daylight. And the next one we're going to put in there is going to be about 20 times or 2 times as dim as this one. So this is going to come in at 20,000 ohms resistance, and then after that we're doing 43,000 ohms resistance, and then we're going to put a resistor in here for 100,000. So the original configuration, there's about 10 times change in resistance from the number here to this one here. In our new configuration, it's going to actually be about 200 times from here to here. So we have a really good range of brightness. Okay, we're ready to go ahead, and we've got the circuit board set up, ready to go. And I've got the hot air gun going. We're going to go ahead and heat up the circuit board. And we should be able to take off the resistors once it gets hot enough. Here we are. Once it gets hot, it goes pretty quick. Get position here so I can get to it. Final one. Okay, we've got those off. Let me turn off the air gun. Okay, we've gotten our resistors out and lined up. So we've got the 430 here, 10,000, 20,000, 43,000, and 100,000 here. These are extra ones that actually fell out. I'll use later on. So these are all ready to go. Next step is to put them in. Okay, we're going to start with the one that's oriented easiest to get to first. That'll be this one up here. That's going to be the 100,000 resistance. So let me get that little guy. There it is, there. I'm going to put some solder on before we start. Little tab there. Now let me get the resistor back. Okay, make sure it's oriented properly. Now I found the easiest way to do this, once you get it positioned, is to clamp it. Pinch it rather than trying to hold it like this. So go ahead and turn on my soldering iron. I forgot to turn it on. Okay, it's set pretty hot. That's fine. So I'm going to tack it in. It's hard to do this while we're watching through the camera. Okay, it should be up to temperature. Make sure it's oriented again. Then I'm going to clamp it there, and now we're just going to there, and hopefully that set it. Now we got to do the other side too, but I'm going to do all the same side. But first, no, I didn't set it. Let's do it again. Okay, get that set. Let's see if it stayed. No. Alright, I need to put some solder on there, I guess. Solder on there. Let's try that. Okay, it might be a little too much solder. It's not a very good solder job, but it looks like it should have kept it there. So let's try it out. Yep. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, so we're on to now getting the other side soldered up. I'm going to try some liquid solder on there to see how that works. And hopefully we don't need to hold it so much anymore now. Hopefully there's enough solder left from the original one that we can just come in here and touch it up. Okay, I'm not sure that we got enough solder on there, so I'm going to grab some more. Okay, we're ready to test the resistance of the circuit. Okay. $430, pretty good. Alright, next one is supposed to be 10,000. So let's go ahead and get that set up. There we are, 10, and the next one's 20. Close enough. And the next one's 43, which is probably out of this range. Yep, so we need to go up. And 43. And finally 100,000. There we go. Okay, everything tested out okay. We are ready to put this back in. Okay, now that we've went ahead and replaced the resistors, we're ready to go and test it out the circuit board. We're ready to put it back into the finder. Again, remember we want to keep them oriented properly. So we orient it like this, make sure the R is on this end here. See that R? And we want to put this little ring here. This holds it in proper place. Line up the notch and then drop it in here. Okay, that's in. Get the notches where they're supposed to be at. Okay, and that should lock it in position there. We got to put this retention ring in here, and this can be a little tricky. Remember, we want to put it so the raised section is facing up. Okay, it's starting to snug down there. Don't want it too tight, but you also want to make sure that it does hit the circuit board so it's not rattling around. Okay, that feels like that's snug in there. Let's go ahead and drop the battery in. Remember, the plus goes up. Thread this in. Get it going. There we go. Nope, not yet. Alright, now it's top's going on. And we're ready just to do a final check on it to make sure it's working. So let's go to the highest, brightest settings for the red. Take a look, see if we can see it. There it is. Go ahead and turn on the light so we can see the dimmer settings better. Good. Next one. There. And go through each one of them and make sure they all work Just remember that the lowest settings on this are going to be very dim. You may not be able to see them in daytime. Now, if for some reason these don't seem to be working like you expect them to when you're turning the knob, it does turn on but different brightnesses and stuff, that would be because you have the circuit board oriented incorrectly when you put it back in. And that covers the adjustments made for the finder. Light and see it all works. All the things are working like they're supposed to. So the final step is to go ahead and attach the base to the finder. So get an Allen wrench and loosen up these screws here enough that we can slide this in. There's a slim little edge here that we're going to get in there. Remember, the back needs to go here, so we're going to get it in there. Make sure it's lined up properly. Snug it in a little bit. Make sure it's in that little divot. Okay, tighten it up. And we should be good to go.